What if the reason you feel so just entirely exhausted by the daily news cycle isn't because you have too much information? What if you are literally asking the wrong questions about reality?
That is a really profound thought to start with.
Right. Well, welcome, learner, to today's custom-tailored deep dive. Because, we spend so much of our lives trying to figure out exactly how things work.
Oh, absolutely. We accumulate facts.
Exactly. We accumulate facts. We master processes. We just download endless articles and deep dives. We treat knowledge like we're frantically trying to collect all the pieces of this massive jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah, but we're doing it without ever actually looking at the picture on the box.
Exactly. We have thousands of these little cardboard fragments, but no idea what they're supposed to form.
Which is an incredibly stressful way to live if you think about it. You end up with a high-definition understanding of the pieces, but zero comprehension of the whole.
Spot on. And our mission today is to help you finally step back and look at that picture on the box. We are pulling from some really deep philosophical texts today.
Yes, specifically focusing on 2 essays. The Face That Turns Toward Truth and Living in the Time of Truth.
Right. And we'll also be touching on some summaries from 2 earlier essays in this series. But the main goal for this deep dive is to explore the massive, life-altering difference between just looking at the world and actually seeing its meaning.
Because there's a big difference there.
Huge. If you're feeling the weight of scattered attention and constant information overload, we want to help you find some solid ground here. Because these sources make a really bold claim. They say humanity hasn't just lost the right answers today. We've actually lost the questions.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is how the source material immediately reorients our entire approach to knowledge.
How so?
Well, it argues that truth is not just some theoretical piece of data you memorize and, store away on a mental hard drive.
Like trivia.
Right, it's not trivia. It is a lived awareness. It requires your intellect, certainly, but also your heart and your conscience.
So it's holistic.
Exactly. When these texts talk about losing the questions, it means we've stopped asking the questions that actually shape us as human beings. We are so obsessed with the mechanical functions of existence that we've completely forgotten to ask about the underlying meaning of it.
Okay, let's unpack this, because if we are missing that picture on the box, we have to ask, what exactly is the picture?
Yeah.
The authors introduce a concept that fundamentally changes how we perceive reality. They argue the world isn't just a collection of random atoms bumping into each other in the dark.
No, it's not.
It's an exhibition, a gallery of art, and not a static museum, but a live broadcast. Every single being, every event is a deliberate work on display happening right now in front of you.
Which is a stark contrast to what the text calls materialistic philosophy.
Right.
That kind of philosophy treats the universe as a completely closed system.
A closed system meaning what exactly?
Meaning that the physical causes of things are viewed as the ultimate reality. So in a closed system, you drop an apple, gravity pulls it down, end of story.
The cause is gravity, the effect is the fall.
Exactly. Philosophy, in this rigid materialistic sense, constantly insists on the question how. How did the apple fall? At what precise speed? What is the mass of the objects involved?
Which are valid questions.
Oh, completely valuable questions. But truth keeps alive the question, why? Why is there a system of gravity at all? Why does this specific architecture of the universe exist?
I see.
The perspective of truth doesn't deny the physical causes. It doesn't deny gravity or physics, but it sees those causes merely as veils.
Okay, but wait. If I treat physical causes as just a veil, doesn't that make me dangerously disconnected from reality? Because the text uses a really striking example here that honestly threw me off at first. It says, fire does not burn. The act of burning is carried out through fire.
Yes, that's a famous line.
Okay, let's unpack this. If fire doesn't burn, isn't that just ignoring science? If I touch a hot stove, my burned hand feels pretty scientifically real.
And you absolutely should grab the fire extinguisher if your kitchen is on fire.
Right. I'm not going to stand there contemplating the profound meaning of the flames.
Exactly. It is a brilliant provocation by the author, but the text is not silencing science or denying your physical reality. It is placing that physical reality into its proper, wider context.
Okay.
Science, art, law, these are all measures and orientations. They preserve the path. Science tells us the exact temperature at which human skin cells sustain damage. It explains the how perfectly.
Right.
But truth reveals why the path exists.
So how does the fire not burn me then, in the context of the text?
When it says burning is carried out through fire, it's saying that the fire is merely the mechanism. It's the brush being used by the painter.
Oh, wait.
The ultimate authority of that action doesn't belong to the fire itself, because the fire is blind, it's unconscious, it possesses no will or intent. To give ultimate credit to the fire for the complexity of what's happening is to mistake the tool for the craftsman.
Oh, wow, I see. It's like staring at a magnificent painting. If you only look at it as a closed system, you end up praising the paintbrush instead of the painter.
Yes. Or think about computer code.
Oh, that's a good one.
If you're playing a beautiful, immersive video game, the closed system view is just staring at the screen and saying, look, this 1 and this 0 caused this pixel to turn red.
Right. And technically, yes, that is how it happened.
Exactly. But if you think the 1s and 0s are the ultimate creators of the game, you're missing the software developer entirely. You're praising the code instead of the coder.
That makes so much sense. You don't ignore the code. The code is the rule of the system, but you don't worship it either.
Precisely. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the text gives us a very specific framework for this shift in perspective. It introduces the concept of mani harfi.
Mani harfi, which translates to what?
It translates to meaning by indication.
Meaning by indication. How does that actually work in our minds?
The central idea is that existence doesn't speak on its own behalf. It only gains meaning through what it signifies.
Could you give an example?
Sure. Think of a physical object as just a letter on a page. A letter A or B doesn't mean anything in isolation, right? It only has meaning when it points to a word or concept outside of itself.
Okay, so if I look at a physical object, let's take a flower, which is an example they use in the source.
Yes, the flower.
If I look at a flower through this lens of mani harfi, I'm supposed to stop looking at it just as, petals and photosynthesis. What am I actively looking for?
You are looking at what the flower indicates. The texts break this down beautifully using divine names.
Okay.
The flower's sheer beauty points to the beautiful, or in the Arabic used in the text, al-jamil. Its incredible, complex biological order points to the wise, al-hakim.
Oh, I see.
And the fact that flowers continue to bloom generation after generation, surviving harsh winters to return in the spring, that points to the self-subsisting al-qayyum. You are moving your gaze from the work itself to the maker of the work.
You're reading the code to see the developer.
Exactly. And that deliberate movement of the gaze is everything. The text insists that we must shift our attention from merely observing the exhibition to actually reading what is being shown. When you deepen this kind of truth, you actively build your worldview. You move from mere imitation, like believing something just because you were told it by society or your parents, to verification.
Verification.
Yes. You verify the truth with your own lived experience by reading the live broadcast for yourself. And psychologically, that brings a profound inward serenity.
And man, that serenity feels incredibly rare right now.
Yeah.
I mean, this addresses the absolute core problem of the modern individual.
Yeah.
We have this inability to hold on because the ground beneath us feels inherently unstable.
It really does.
We're moving at a relentless pace, completely distracted, attaching our self-worth to things that are constantly changing.
Because if you anchor your ultimate peace to a closed system, say your career, your wealth, or even your physical health, you are anchoring yourself to something that is guaranteed to eventually change or decay.
Right.
When those things falter, your entire foundation crumbles. But if those things are merely letters pointing to a higher meaning, the meaning remains even when the letters change.
Okay, learner, you might be listening to this and thinking seeing a flower as a reflection of divine beauty is lovely when you're on a sunny walk in the park.
Sure.
But let's ground this in reality. What happens when life falls apart? If the whole world is a live broadcast of meaning, how does this framework hold up when the broadcast is showing us a tragedy?
Yeah, that's the real test.
Exactly. How do we read the code when the code is bringing us stress or illness or profound loss?
This raises an important question, and frankly, it's where this philosophy proves its true mettle. A worldview that only works on sunny days is pretty useless.
Exactly.
The texts don't shy away from human pain. They reframe hardship entirely. In the closed system view, a hardship is just a random, chaotic misfortune. It's bad luck.
Just a glitch in the code.
Right. But in the view of truth, a hardship is a door.
A door to what?
It opens specifically to patience, and it points to another attribute, the healer, or al-Shafi. The text argues that illness, for example, is not merely a biological malfunction. In a purely materialistic worldview, getting sick is just a failure of your cells. It's purely negative. But through the lens of meaning by indication, illness is a profound lesson in human vulnerability. It strips away the illusion that we are invincible.
And loss, too. I mean, loss is something everyone listening to this has experienced.
Absolutely.
The text frames loss not just as a subtraction from your life, but as a vital reminder that forces you to question how you attach yourself to things in this world.
Yeah.
It asks, were you loving the painting or were you loving the painter through the painting?
Exactly. Even our daily grind, our sustenance, getting a paycheck isn't just the ultimate result of you clocking in hours at an office.
Right.
The job is the veil, the mechanism. The sustenance itself is the ongoing manifestation of the provider, Al-Razak.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Doesn't this view make us incredibly passive?
How do you mean?
Well, if literally everything, my success, my sickness, my income, my loss, if it's all just a divine manifestation, a live broadcast I'm just supposed to watch, why should I try at all? Like, if my illness is just a door to the healer, why would I ever take medicine?
That is the exact trap the text warns against, and it offers a brilliant, highly practical counter.
Okay, good.
Adopting the gaze of truth does not mean you leave events unattended. It's actually designed to prevent two massive human errors: arrogant autonomy on one side and passive fatalism on the other.
Let's break those down. What is arrogant autonomy?
Arrogant autonomy is the trap of the closed system. It's the belief that you are entirely in control of the universe. If you succeed, it's 100% your doing. If you fail, it's 100% your fault.
Oh, that sounds exhausting.
It is. Think about a high-stress situation, like waiting for the results of a medical biopsy. The mind, trapped in arrogant autonomy, spirals. It endlessly Googles survival rates. It feels completely crushed by the statistics.
Because it believes the cells have the final say.
Exactly. Because it believes the physical cells hold the ultimate, final authority over life and death. And because you can't control the cells, you are consumed by terrifying anxiety.
Right. And the other extreme, passive fatalism.
Passive fatalism is the misunderstanding of truth. It's saying, well, the outcome is up to the universe, so I'm not even going to go to the doctor. I won't get the biopsy.
Yeah, just give up.
Right. You surrender your agency completely, which the texts argue is a failure to respect the rules of the exhibition. The text calls for a third path, a specific mechanism called responsible trust.
Responsible trust. How does that operate in the biopsy scenario?
In responsible trust, you engage fully with the causes, because the causes are the established rules of the exhibition. You go to the doctor, you take the medicine, you eat healthy, you respect the physical path.
Okay, so you do the work.
Yes. But, and this is the crucial psychological shift, you do not grant those causes ultimate authority in your heart. You separate the effort from the worry. You do your part responsibly, but you trust the ultimate outcome to the maker. The seeker of wisdom, the text says, is not crushed under events. They learn from them.
That is a massive paradigm shift. It takes the agonizing weight of the universe off our shoulders while still demanding our active participation in life.
Exactly.
Like, if I apply for a mortgage, I fill out the paperwork perfectly, I save my money that's respecting the cause, but if the bank says no, I don't tie my entire self-worth to the rejection.
Right, because the bank is just a veil.
Exactly. I trust that the provision will come from elsewhere.
Precisely. That is how this philosophy lightens the psychological burden of modern life. You remain active, but you are no longer anxious.
So if I want to adopt this responsible trust, if I want to start reading the world this way, wait. If I'm doing all this psychological reframing entirely on my own, couldn't I just delude myself?
That's a very real risk.
Right. Like, how do I know I'm actually reading the meaning by indication correctly and not just making up a comforting story to make myself feel better?
That is a brilliant pushback, and it's exactly why the source material transitions into the mechanics of how we practice this safely. You cannot do this in a vacuum.
So I need help.
Yes. If you try to interpret the entire universe solely through your own isolated mind, your ego will inevitably sneak back in. You might develop spiritual pride, thinking you're the only one who truly sees reality.
Yeah, I can see that happening.
To prevent that delusion, we need the right posture and the right community.
Which brings us to a concept mentioned in the texts called Tadaris.
Yes. The texts explore the vital synergy between disciplined expertise and collective inquiry. Tadaris essentially means learning together, communal study.
But how does sitting in a circle reading philosophy actually dismantle my ego?
Think about how we normally engage with information today. When you are arguing to win, your identity is intrinsically tied to being right.
Oh, absolutely.
If someone proves you wrong, you feel personally diminished. But Tadaros forces a different psychological mechanism. When you engage in collective learning, you submit to coherence. You listen to how someone else reads the live broadcast, and it reveals your own blind spots.
Oh, I see.
You are relieved of the exhausting burden of having to be the sole generator of truth. In our age, grounding our faith and our worldview is fundamentally an individual responsibility. No one can do it for you. But precisely because it is so heavy, shared learning becomes vital to calibrate our understanding.
So what does this all mean for the way we communicate today? I mean, we live in an era of hot takes, quote tweets, and endless internet debates where absolutely everyone wants to win.
It's exhausting.
We build our entire online identities around destroying the other side with facts and logic.
Yeah.
This text is basically telling us that if you're engaging with information just to win the argument, you've already lost the truth.
Precisely. Because when truth speaks, what is required is often not objection, but alignment.
Alignment. That's a challenging word for a culture that loves rebellion.
It is challenging. But the author is careful to note, alignment is not the silencing of reason. It is simply the placing of reason in its proper place.
Okay.
Reason is a tool to comprehend the truth, not a weapon to defeat it. When you are constantly in a defensive, argumentative posture, your ego is in the driver's seat. You are fragmented. You are trying to force the jigsaw puzzle pieces to fit your preconceived image.
Right.
But when a person truly accepts a truth, they do not diminish.
I really want to highlight that. Accepting truth doesn't make you smaller. You do not diminish. You are freed from fragmentation.
Yes. The burden of the mind lightens. The language of the heart becomes simpler. You stop fighting the live broadcast and start learning from it. Truth doesn't speak to prevail over you. It speaks to give you direction.
And in a world where everyone feels so lost and overwhelmed, knowledge that actually provides direction is the only kind that is truly vital.
Exactly.
It's incredible how these sources, which deal with such lofty, abstract concepts, end up being a perfectly grounded diagnosis of our modern psychological state.
It really is.
We've moved from recognizing the modern, scattered mind, staring at puzzle pieces with no picture, to seeing the world not as a cold, closed system of physics, but as a live exhibition pointing to a much deeper why.
We've traced a journey from asking how does it work to asking why does it exist. And that shift in the mechanism of your mind changes everything.
It changes everything.
It changes how you view a flower, how you process an illness, and how you engage with the people you disagree with. It moves you from living a fragmented life of constant anxiety and analysis to a grounded life of lived awareness and responsible trust.
It's about not settling for what is merely seen, but actively training yourself to read what is being shown.
I think the most powerful distillation of this entire deep dive comes near the very end of the source material. It summarizes the ultimate goal of finding this truth.
Well, what was that?
It says, a true word leaves one without reply, not because it lacks an answer, but because it removes the need for one.
Wow. It removes the need for one. That is the ultimate serenity, the end of the relentless, exhausting questioning of how and the peaceful acceptance of the why.
Exactly.
Learner, we want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. Building on what these texts reveal about our modern condition, we talked about how scattered attention makes it hard to find solid ground. But if scattered attention is the defining struggle of our modern age, could it be that our constant distraction isn't just a simple time management problem?
Right.
What if it is actually a subconscious refusal to watch the live broadcast of meaning playing out right in front of us? The next time you find yourself doom scrolling on your phone or obsessively trying to control the how of a stressful situation, pause and ask yourself, why are you actively trying to avoid seeing?